So I'm with Lesley Hanney, my beautiful girlfriend, and who I love very much. And we are talking about that video I made about getting work and my approach to getting work, i.e., getting in with people who are doing it, like filmmakers and stuff, and helping them out, maybe voluntarily for a long time. But you have a very different experience, and you got a lot of work abroad when you were very young. I wanted to just get your experience and advice. But starting with this sewing machine, like, how old were you when you got this sewing machine, and what happened when you got it?
Well, this sewing machine was given to me when I was 14 years old by my dad. And before then, I used to use one of those little black ones that you see in the shops and in the antique shops and in the museums, actually.
The singer.
Yeah, the Singer, black, kind of with gold sort of flowery writing on it. But so when I got this, I was just so chuffed. And my mother um, said that she would give me £50 a month, which is an awful lot of money in those days, if I went and bought fabrics. And so I would go out to the market on a Thursday and buy fabric from the guy in the market, because the shops in the town where I grew up were, the fabrics were really boring. But he used to bring some really interesting fabrics because he kind of worked across the whole of Southeast England and London. So it was really, really good because I got all these wonderful fabrics, and I used to make all my own clothes, which meant, as a youngster, when I went to the school disco, I wasn't wearing everything that everybody else was wearing. I was wearing something really quite unique. And I have an absolute passion for fashion, but I'm not really interested in that kind of high end fashion. I'm interested in people's creativity in their fashion. And so all the way through the punk years, the hippie years that I had, I made all my own clothes, including, sticking all the studs on during those punk rocker years.
And how did that all transform into making actual money? Like, did your sewing make you money eventually?
Yeah, so I went to Goldsmiths, and I did.
What's Goldsmiths?
It's an art school, a part of London University, and I went there in the early 80s, and I went and did a fine art textiles degree, and I made fabrics, and all of those fabrics and all that artwork was sewn sometimes at home with this machine, but sometimes with the machines at the uni. But after I left, I ended up making backdrops and banners for bands and for the miners' strike, for women supporting the miners' strike, for different trade unions, all with this sewing machine.
What kind of bands?
So the kind of bands that I worked with were U2, Prince, Run DMC. I did Dame Edna Everidge's a backdrop for her. I can't remember all of them now. But what happened is I was doing the U2 backdrop for their Love Town tour, and I was due to go with them on the tour to make sure that the scrim, which is what I'd put together and sewn and painted, was going to not get holes in it, and looked after on the tour, and that was my job. And they were going to, if I remember rightly, Japan and then to Australia. And then the tour manager, who happened to be having an affair with one of the administrators in the company, suddenly alerted me that I wasn't coming because this administrator was going instead.
His girlfriend?
Yeah, his secret girlfriend. And so I left the company, and I won't say what I thought, but I then got a one-way ticket actually to Asia, and I flew to Asia, and I travelled solo around Asia for about a year, to all the way through Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and then I went down to Australia to earn some more money. And I went to Australia, and I ended up in Australia working. And so I suppose that the point of this is what I had kind of a little bit of a sort of different experience than what Rupert was talking about. Was I'm a great believer is just take your opportunities. So when someone offers you an opportunity, however not great it seems, just take it, because those things open other opportunities and open doors.
How did you get the first job in Australia?
So the first job I got, I saw it advertised, and they were looking for people to sell Greenpeace to door in the evenings. So it was on commission, so basically I was hardly earning any money, but I was going around knocking on people's doors in the suburbs of Sydney trying to sell Greenpeace. And out of that, I got a chance to go on the Rainbow Warrior, which was Greenpeace's boat, which was an incredible experience. And I also met another young person who was a bit younger than me, but she had a flat and a spare room. And so I managed to get myself out of the youth hostel into a room. And then I started following up with lots of contacts that I'd had. You know, people said, oh, this company we've kind of come across. So I started knocking on people's doors and just introducing myself. And then I got a job as a painter and decorator, which was like, okay, well, whatever. And out of that, I made a lifelong friend, and I worked doing all sorts of things for her. And so my point is that sometimes any little silly opportunity, however silly it is, and you think, I don't want to be doing that, has potential in it. The job might not be great, but the potential of what doors that might open, what connections and links that can make. And so, you know, I think one of the problems is people, particularly as they get older, kind of think, well, I can only get a job if I'm going in as a manager, or I'm going in as a director, or, you know, but I would say just go in as anything, because once you're in and you build relationships with people, because as a recruiter, I work for the NHS now, and I sit on a lot of interviews, and I'm interested in people I want to work with, not really what's on their CV, because I've learned historically that what people say on their CV often doesn't correlate to how they behave in work. So I look for people that I want to work with, and so relationship and the ability to have relationships with people, I think, is a really vital clue. So even as going in as a painter and decorator, you know, I think it was a very small wage that I was being paid. But I just got on with people. We had a laugh, and then when other jobs came in, I was first on the list for them to come. And I would say that that's a philosophy that I've had in life, is all the way through, is whatever opportunity is, say yes, even though it might look like a really awful opportunity. But you actually, it kind of doesn't work with the word opportunity, but there is a hidden opportunity sometimes with things that aren't so great looking. So just go for it and say yes.
And you think it's easy for women to get jobs abroad?
Yes, I had no problem. I mean, I worked very quickly. I got jobs. I think you've got to have a little bit of be a bit cocky. You've got to kind of pretend. I mean, I remember that first job of walking into this big warehouse where all these people were, to try and ask if I could, with my portfolio, if I could come and work for them. And I'd had a cigarette outside because I was so nervous, and in those days I smoked. And I remember having a cigarette outside and going in there because I didn't really have that much confidence, but I thought, I've got to do this because I actually want to work, and I really can see that working when I was in Australia allowed me to go and see things more, go back into Asia again and travel again, and I needed money. So those are the motivators. But I had my fag and I went in, and I'll never forget Marielle, who was the person who employed me later, saying to me, well, we wondered who this kind of brassy English woman who stunk of cigarettes was. They did employ me, and then she ended up really loving me very much. She still does.
Brilliant. Thank you.